It's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
We had just gone through the cafeteria, the Gnome of Strawberry Plains and me at S&S Cafeteria in Knoxville, and we sat down amid a very 1960s decor. The other people dining at that restaurant were in their 50s and 60s and 70s. There were several tables with women eating by themselves and senior citizens sitting in small groups. And the odor in that restaurant somehow seemed very, very old, very much in the past. And the gnome himself is a man in the past in a way. He's a carpenter, and we had left behind us at a public meeting place his truck full of carpenter's junk and pieces of wood and tools and buckets of paint and whatnot in the back of his truck. And we had driven over a few blocks to the restaurant for dinner. The gnome of Strawberry Plains in his 70s, and his knees giving him a little bit of trouble. And we sat there, and he began eating, holding his fork in a very, very fundamental sort of way, very, very plain way, not a man of refinement in his manner, the paint, white paint in the lines of his fingernails, and his hands not washed from his day of work. And as he had ended it to come to meet me after a meeting, and we were going to get caught up, he had for me a gift, and I had for him his folder. He is a man awaiting indictment, and on a charge that touches on a matter of great interest to him and to me. The charge touches on the fact that he drives a car, that he uses the public road as a matter of right, independently, not having had a driver's license for more than 30 years, and exercising his right to move about, the property right inherent in travel, and engorging himself on this right for all this time, having had many bouts with the law, many bouts with law enforcement, most recently with a state trooper that waylaid him on his way to a job and charged him with driving on a suspended license. Now, this charge is wonderfully provocative, and perhaps the state is or was getting ahead of itself in making that charge, because you can't have a suspended license if you have not had it suspended for any of 20 causes or so outlined in the statute, and you can't obtain a license without personally applying for it. So how could this man who's never had a driver's license who has had no driver's license for 3 decades, how can he be charged with driving on a suspended license? So this seemed to me a little bit of chicanery. And within a few days after hearing about this ordeal, actually a couple months after hearing about this ordeal, I filed an open records request. The open records request I filed may have thrown a chicken bone down the throat of this operation in the Department of Safety and Homeland Security. I don't know, but I have not been satisfied about my query as to what procedure allows that department in any way to create a driver's license application, grant somebody a license, and then suspend the license without any kind of cause, and then come to the man accused of this sin of driving without a driver's license, and then accusing him, charging him, forcing him to have his name dragged by some good soul in the prosecutor's office in Knox County before the grand jury. Well, nothing's happened yet, but here we are waiting, and I'm wondering if perhaps the state maybe stepped in too quickly. Maybe the state will win by ignoring the free man. There are not many free men, and I'm not one, I don't think, except perhaps through the Lord Jesus in my soul. But there are a few men who are practically free in their legal status, and status is an extraordinarily important thing to have. Either you have the proper status to be free or you don't. And you and I, because we have engagements with commercial government, and commerce. We are not really free, and we can't make certain defenses. However, the gnome of Strawberry Plains looked wryly at me, asking me some questions about my status, and I somewhat demurred as we were eating our meat. He had a slab of meat on his plate and a mess of onions and a rather large piece of pie and bread and a couple of vegetables. And he ate very, very hungrily. And though I thought maybe the pie, given his weight, should have been left back at that gleaming counter there at S&S Cafeteria in Knoxville. But the question before us is liberty. And one of the things that he urged me to make use of is a copy of Shannon's, it's a 100-year-old book, Shannon's Constitution of Tennessee annotated. And here I'm holding it. Now, notice that the value in this book is not perhaps in the volume. If you want to see this volume here on YouTube, we are, by the way, at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and we stream live at youtube.com. My name is David Tulis, and I'm the host with the bow tie, trying to look smart every day for you. And I wear a bow tie in my jacket and my best shoes, even though they are scuffed, because it matters to me that I can come here and have the great honor of having you, my listener, giving me a couple of minutes of your time. And then there's another man, by the way, who's watching, and him also, I care about him. And so to him alone, I will show this edition. It's Shannon, 1916. So it's a book that's 100 years old or 99 years old. And the valuable part of it is the book itself, but also the notes on the top. You see, these are all bookmarks in various scraps of paper with his writing. His writing is, the gnome's writing is very much like that of my father, very fine writing. And though he's not a man of refinement in his manners, and maybe he has his Christian ideals are simpler than mine. Maybe he has very common ideas about the gospel. He is a saved man and a Christian man, and has always operated on the basis of God's goodness to him and the grant God gives to the common man. But I mentioned this book because we want to look at for a minute, or in a minute, we want to look at the bubble economy. There is a bubble economy coming, and it is there because of the general neglect of the things that so preoccupy the gnome of Strawberry Plains. And we talked a little bit about his defense. It's a remarkable defense, and because he was so dogged in talking with me about the state of the law in Tennessee, I have changed my position. My position earlier was kind of a default position based on some of the work and some long conversations with Stan Perchowski. Now, Stan Perchowski is an attorney in Middle Tennessee and practices criminal law. And he had made a run for a judgeship in his county in, well, I'm forgetting the name of the town, in the Pulaski area. And he once was a free man. And it was a remarkable occasion that before he obtained his law degree and went back into the system, he was a free man and gave me much encouragement in my efforts to obtain legal liberties of status. But the book, the Shannon book, has a couple of quotes. Let me just tell you what some of the things that this man, the gnome, makes note of. He says, for example, law violating any express or implied provision of Constitution is not, quote, law of the land. He marked this one. A law which violates any provision of the Constitution, whether the provision be express or implied, cannot be the law of the land, meaning common law, because an unconstitutional law is in fact no law at all. And that's citing a case, Stratton versus Morris. And there's another one, just the next one, and that though the Constitution does not expressly prohibit the taking of private property for private use, this brings up the whole question about Superior Creek Lodge in East Ridge. Yet it has been held to do so by implication, and therefore a statute which takes the private property of one person to give to another for the latter's private use cannot, under this section, be the law of the land, however general in form and application may be. And then another quote that he had marked with his varied colored strips of squares of paper, and that is that counsel may read and argue the law to the jury. And part of that is from a case called Hannah versus State, and it says it is impossible to make out a case from facts, whether stating and arguing the law applicable, without stating the law or stating or arguing the law applicable to the facts. And what he used that, the Noam used that in a 1985 case that created an appellate decision with his name on it. And he tried to argue the law in front of the jury. And I warned him later. I said, well, that was your mistake that you lost, because the jury, your efforts to argue the law before the jury were simply not allowed. It should have been, these arguments should have been made by brief beforehand. And he agreed that this was perhaps even then a mistake, though we are here citing a book with cases at least 100 years old. And another one, statutes against common rights or repugnant to the plain and obvious dictates of reason, though not prohibited by the Constitution, will be declared to be void. So here we have a law that's against common right and repugnant to the plain and obvious dictates of reason will be declared void. These are the kinds of things this man has studied much of his life. He has spent 20 years in the Knoxville Law Library. In fact, I heard about him before I ever met him. I heard about that man in Knoxville whose head is bent over. You can see the top of it, but you can't see his face or his jowls or his T-shirt, because he is hiding behind a stack of law books that he's going to go through and that are stacked up there at his elbow next to his pencils and paper in the Knoxville Law School library. And the question we have here at our show with me, your host, David Tulis, is, can a man like that be right? And he once sat his whole family down, his sons and a daughter, I think, and said, if you want me to stop this fight, I will. But if you allow me, I will continue to press on. And what he has done, what the Noam has done over the years, is help defendants deal with the IRS, help people who are not licensed drivers to use the road at liberty. And my dealings with the Noam were in my efforts to have a driver's license. He was saying you don't need a driver's license to use the roads, but there I was arguing that I had a right to a driver's license, a substantive and procedural right to a driver's license, even though I was a man who didn't have a social security number. So what is David Tulis to do? Well, he is to sue to obtain a driver's license. And even though my arguments in person, the newspaper, the Chattanooga Time-Free Press newspaper editor, making arguments in court of appeal in person. I don't know that that's been done before in the ranks of the press in our state, but I was the man who did that. And though that decision went against me, what happened in the meantime was that the legislature rewrote a perfectly good statute in the driver's license application statute to account for my arguments. It was a statute that was being abused by the commissioner, and everyone seemed to think that the commissioner somehow, in his interpretation as a grant of power, was correct, though it was not. And so a good statute was rewritten to account for arguments from me, your host, David Tulis. Well, we are facing a national crisis, and there's a hearing, there's a meeting going on today, and an announcement about to be made in the next couple hours from the Federal Reserve System, the issuer of our fiat currency, the body, according to David Stockman in his economic history, I think from 2013, it's called the Great Deformation, the entity which has brought the country to this low end, and which is going to be responsible for the complete dysfunction and the complete breakdown of the national system, and an increasingly bitter political sphere where no political figure, not even any of those who spoke last night before the Republican hordes, can solve. No one can solve these problems. They are insoluble. And what we face here in Chattanooga is the dissolution and the breakdown of the national system. Now, it's not going to go away immediately. There won't be a great moment where suddenly the lights go out in Congress and the lights go out at the surveillance centers in Utah and the fusion centers around the state that are spying on us, violating our constitutional rights. That's not going to happen quite that dramatically. But as things that are somewhat of the equivalent occur in the financing of that behemoth, we here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County need to find things we can do now, and that is one of our goals here is to give you, my listener, the best that we can produce for you in the way of honest thinking that ascribes to the world the attributes that God put into man. Okay, and so we have to understand that God made man a certain way, and men are in many ways predictable, and God's laws, which we could say are summarized in the Ten Commandments, are knowable, and the implications that they make, those commandments make on society in general, create systems whose future is predictable. Okay, I'm saying if you have a principle, especially if it's biblical, if it comes from Revelation, you're going to have a sounder overall ethic and a sounder overall way of understanding the times than you will if you just go to the university and read Samuelson, right? Your knowledge of economics is based on the confusions of Paul Samuelson's basic economics book, which everybody who studies economics has to kind of go through to submit their mind and their spirits to this apostle of John Maynard Keynes, the great theoretician, right? The great theoretician of the left, we like to say, who believes that deficit spending and that debt itself is wealth. That debt is wealth. The man who was a homosexual, by the way, who turned economics on its head, and whose followers are in almost all the professoriates, all the big foundations, most of the branches of governments and financial advisory bodies for the president and for Congress, its committeemen. All of them are apostles in some way or other, or disciples, if you will, of this great thinker. And yet we have a revolution that is coming to its head. Okay, at the time of the French Revolution, you had the time when Marat and Robespierre were waiting in the gallows for their execution by the guillotine. Right, they had made the guillotine to destroy the priests, to destroy the lords and nobles and their children and their wives, and those who did not make proper obeisance to the revolution. And the revolution of the egalitarian state, right? The total modern welfare state that's all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present. That was what was in view among the Jacobins in the 1760s, 70s, and 80s. And so we've had in our country a revolution too, and it's noted by certain important writers. And I want to throw out a book you ought to get. Ask David down at Winderbinder bookshop and gallery down at North Shore to get it for you. It's called The People's Pottage by Garrett Garrett. I'm holding up a copy here from my viewer on YouTube. On our YouTube channel, by the way, it's Hot News Talk Radio. And this is a sentence or two from an essay in this book. This book has 3 essays. One is The Revolution Was, and it says, so it was that a revolution took place from within the form, like the hagfish, the New Deal entered the old form and devoured its meaning from within. The revolutionaries were inside. The defenders, that would be you, that would be you and me, were outside. A government that had been supported by the people and so controlled by the people became one that supported the people and so controlled them. Much of it is irreversible. That is true because habits of dependence are easier to form than to break. Once the government, on ground of public policy, has assumed the responsibility to provide people with buying power when they are in want of it, or when they are unable to provide for themselves with enough of it, according to a minimum proclaimed by government, it will never be the same again. And he says it's cruel and cynical suspicion of any motive but its own was a reflection of something it knew about itself. Its voice was the voice of righteousness. Its methods, therefore, were more dishonest than the simple ways of corruption. So we have in the national government, in the Federal Reserve System, and in the national government, we have a system which is corrupt but virtuous, right? It has a virtue of making free money available for everything that you need. And the result in Chattanooga is a vast overbuilding, a vast form of malinvestment. And you can see signs of it here and there in the building trades. You have empty strip malls, you have empty stores, houses that are built that are not sold, even though foreclosed upon. There's overbuilding because the money is free. The money, of course, is not money. It is simply credit. And Congress has not maintained its authority. The executive branch, the Congress, and the judiciary all conspire against you. and refuse to maintain a medium of exchange, a holding of value. That is the currency, right? The currency of the nation is the Federal Reserve System. And because that paper that's in your pocket is dishonest, because it's not referential, because the words on it don't refer to anything of any meaning, they don't give you a claim on a real asset like a silver coin, which is what a dollar is. A dollar is a silver coin of a certain density, a certain size and weight and fineness of silver. Because we don't have that, we have a bubble. We have a bubble economy, and that means that you're in peril if you rely on it. So what are the weak ways, the ways that seem feckless and unaccountable, that may be the right direction? So I hope we can look at how it is that what things we can do that are local economy oriented. I think local economy and the free market are the solution. Now, the solution, if you're hungry, is to get a Raphael's pizza. Order one pizza from Raphael's, and you'll get two. Now, that's local economy.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect more of the same weather-wise for your Thursday after this patchy morning fog. Lots of sunshine, a little warmer, highs lower 80s. Tonight, lows a little closer to 60. For Friday as well as the weekend, not much change. Warm afternoons with lots of sunshine, highs 82 to 85. Experience the demo teams of the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor, FA-18 Hornet, U.S. Marine Corps Osprey, and the Geico Sky Typers at the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show in Rome, October 3rd and 4th. And I'm WDEF News Swell's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. Two pizzas. You got the two for the price of one at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. Two pizzas. You got the two for the price of one at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. In round 2 of the GOP presidential face-off, candidates standing off on foreign affairs, gay marriage, and immigration. In the debate on CNN, Jeb Bush pressing Donald Trump to apologize for comments he made about his Mexican-born wife.
To subject my wife into the middle of a raucous political conversation was completely inappropriate, and I hope you apologize for that, Donald.
Well, I have to tell you, I hear phenomenal things. I hear your wife is a lovely woman.
She is.
I
She's
don't
fantastic.
know her, and this
she
is
is
a total
absolutely the love of my life, and she's right here. And why don't you apologize for her?
No, I won't
right
do that
now.
Because I said nothing wrong, but I do hear she's a lovely woman.
Trump calling Bush weak on immigration. A hearing today to decide if Sergeant Bo Bergdahl should face a military trial for leaving his post in Afghanistan.
Bergdahl disappeared from his platoon's Afghanistan outpost in 2009 and was taken prisoner by insurgents and released last year in a controversial swap for 5 Taliban.
Radio's Tanya J. Powers, Fox News. We report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
The Federal Reserve Committee, called the FOMC, the Fed Open Market Committee, will be declaring at some point today whether or not it will raise interest rates. And you say, well, what does that have to do with me? Well, the TV coverage, the news coverage tends to talk about this in terms of the listener. Okay, the listener wants to know, is he going to be paying more for a car loan? Will he be paying more for a mortgage? And the news is delivered in terms of consumption. And yet really the news is not about consumption. It's about production, the production of new paper notes, new dollars in the lending process, the creation of new dollars by the Fed monetizing debt, by taking debts, its own debts and the debts of others, and pretending that these debts, some of which are based on real estate, some of which are corporate debt and other, that these debts are money, and then injecting this new money into the banking sector, hoping we're told in the press that the new credit will expand the economy. Of course, that's the whole language is about expansion. We have economic growth, and what that whole language does is confuse issues. Inflation and deflation are monetary phenomenon purely, right? They're purely monetary. When the Fed inflates, it creates new units of dollars, so-called. When it oversees a deflation, something it generally doesn't want to have happen, there is a reduction in the number of dollars circulating. Economic growth, we are to understand, as we think of it, is, well, the American economy is producing more, people are back at work, efficiencies in production, in cutting costs are there. They are making us more valuable to the world at large with goods and services and innovation, inventions, and new techniques, new products, new technology, new computing systems, new gadgets, new security systems. These are things that are real values, right? That American people, in their genius for capitalism, in their genius for finding solutions, are known for throughout the world. Well, we think, okay, so when we hear economic growth, we think that those things which involve you, that's where you, my listener, are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You are part of that system. You are creating value for your employer, or in your business, you're creating value for your customers. And that's economic growth. But what they're confusing are these two things: economic growth that you're responsible for, you and your company, and then economic growth, which is purely monetary. In other words, creating new ejaculations of credit. Okay, that's what is being done here. New insemination, if you will, of the marketplace with new and cheap credit, and that what we have is we have that phenomenon, debt creation. That's what credit is. Credit is a debt. So credit creation or debt creation is given the mantle of economic growth. And so we have to have economic growth, and we have to have the stimulus of new money, but we don't want inflation. We want more inflation than we have now, but we don't want too much. We want to have enough to make sure, we are told in the press, that we don't have a deflation. A deflation is when suddenly the system starts slowing in its growth, or actually actually shrinking. And that is when you, my listener, if we're going to tell the story about the shrinkage from your perspective, which won't happen, of course, it will never happen. Suddenly, if we have a shrinkage of the monetary base, it will be described as against you, right? It'll be described as something that prevents people from buying and selling. It prevents companies from investing. What happens in a deflation is that as the money supply starts to shrink, as the trillions of zeros lose a billion here and a billion there, and then 10 billion and 100 billion, and the number starts going down, what happens to you? Well, you suddenly can buy more, right? Your dollar in your billfold or in your checking account suddenly is able to buy more in the marketplace. And so there's an advantage to you, and there's always an advantage to you to save and to buy later. That's the end of the consumption binge on which we have been as a country and a people since the founding of the Federal Reserve System. It's been one great binge with some ups and downs along the way, of course. But going back to 1914, when the Fed was created, it has been a borrowing binge, and it has secured the place of many of the wealthiest families connected with the banking sector. And it's opportune for me to take a call at this moment. This is David Tulis, and caller, you're on the air.
David, I'd like to add to your conversation that every single American with a Social Security number is adding to the debt crisis and the economic problem, because they are being used as collateral by the federal government to create units of purchasing power from thin air and defraud their fellow Americans. And that's how that's how the Fed gets credit, or the federal government gets credit. It goes to the Federal Reserve and says, we need to create more units of purchasing power from thin air. Forget about taxes. No one's ever taxed. You need something to tax someone. People lose purchasing power to control consumption to prevent price inflation. The paper is just representative of monetized debt. 95% of all daily transactions are non-paper. So the entire system is based on fraud. And if you save, you lose money. And that's what they don't want. They don't want you to save. Put money in the bank. They don't want you to save. They want you to spend. If you have 100 units of purchasing power in your pocket today, and you save that for 5 years with no interest, you have lost purchasing power. That tax in Keynesian economics is called a hidden tax. It's called inflation, which is inflating the money supply, which devalues every other product, good, or service in the economy. So the entire system is not only unbiblical, because it is a diverse weight and measure, but it's based on fraud and theft. And the Internal Revenue Service and the Federal Reserve, the entire federal system, is behind it, especially politicians like Lindsey Graham. Okay, thank you, David.
Well, the point of our monetary system being immoral, I think, is crucial. It's immoral because it is, as the caller points out, it is a diverse way to measure. Remember, the word dollar is a term of weight, just as the word foot is a term of measurement. Yard, a yard is 3 feet. A yard is 36 inches. The word inch, of course, is a measure of length and space as well. Pound, ounce, kilo. These are all words of measurement. The word gallon and quart and pint, they're all from the English system, also words of measurement. And what's proposed by the good people, as we like to call them, is that while they'll enforce measures of inches and feet by having state enforcement, pleasing to God, because it ensures fair weights and measures. It's called a Weights and Measures Division. I believe it's in the Tennessee Department of Commerce. And what it does is it goes around and makes sure that if you pump a gallon out of a fuel pump for ethanol-free gas, as I do, of course, I always get ethanol-free gas, that it's an actual gallon. So it carefully measures the output, measuring the flow of the liquid is accurate. So that's a biblical and godly function to make sure that people are not being defeated. However, the good people with their Federal Reserve System, with their internal revolution, as Garrett calls it, what it does, it said we're going to take one measurement and we're going to allow ourselves to play games with it. We're going to allow ourselves to cheat the people who rely on this word for their buying and selling and for their savings and for their calculation of the value of investments. And what they've done is they've taken the word dollar and pretended that the new dollar is the same thing. And a dollar is 412.5 grains of silver, 90% fine. And you ask, well, what does that mean exactly? Well, I think I can tell you. As opposed to tell you, I can show you. And let me just demonstrate what I'm talking about. Okay, here, I want you to listen to something. Okay, this is coin. These are some coins from my pocket. Okay, hear that? Now that's just regular. That's just, you might call it crap money that circulates now. Now here's some real money. You hear that? These are dollars. That's the sound of a dollar. And the reason one sounds different from the other is that one is the latter is of substantial metal, namely silver. And it's these are Morgan dollars. One is an 1898. These are all circulated. One's 1900, and the other is a 1900. So I have three of these coins that I often just carry around, and they're lawful dollars. Because we don't have those, we have the first one, the little tinkling sounds. You can tell that the newer ones don't have the heft of real money. Caller, this is David Tulis, and you're on the air. What's on your mind?
David, so they're actually dollar quantities of silver, because you can't touch a dollar, you can't touch an ounce,
right.
You can't touch a mile. The units of measurement.
That's right. It's a measurement of something. So a mile of what? Well, a mile of land, or a mile of cable that's going to spread telecom delights to a rural area. That it's a measurement.
Right, so
it's always a measure of something.
Accurate, that's not a silver dollar. It's a dollar quantity of silver. It's a certain weight, a penny weight. Let's take the British pound. So we're talking about a particular quantity of something. So you can't actually touch a dollar. It's not a thing. Therefore, because I looked on your Twitter, you have what looks like people would call a $5 bill. It says paid to the bearer in demand $5. So the paper was just evidence that there was $5 in silver, a quantity of silver, somewhere to be bought back or redeemed by the paper. Therefore, the thing that promises to redeem something can't be the thing it promises to redeem. In other words, if the paper said, give to the bearer on demand 5 chickens, the paper couldn't be the chickens. It just represents the chickens being somewhere that need to be redeemed or bought back. Does that make sense?
I think my listener finds that appealing. Thanks very much. Well, my name is David Tulis, and we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And we think inflation is bad for you, but there is one inflation that I think you might want to really appreciate, and that is inflation that we get from Raphael's Pizza. And here's how it works: you buy one pizza, and suddenly you have two. Okay, that's Raphael's Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant. And you get this great offer at either of 3 stores, one in Hickson on Highland Plaza, one in Saudi Daisy next to Saudi Church of God, and then on Signal Highway, on Taft Highway on Signal Mountain, open every day. You buy one and you get one pizza free. That's a great offer from Raphael's. And since we're talking about investments and inflation, you'll get very good advice from a man named Patrick Neal. Patrick Neal is a Hickson Edward Jones broker, and his office is next to the Target on 153 behind the Calcutta Banking Company, the CBC Bank. And again, his name is Patrick Neal, and the number is 870-7894. That's 870-7894. And Patrick is very good at explaining investments and your portfolio. So if you, my listener, need advice, conservative advice of a traditional kind, make sure you contact Patrick Neal. The Fed, when it made the announcement that it was not going to issue, a new line of money, had a press release that came out November 26, 1963, and it says, well, we're taking some writing off the bill. If you go to our Twitter feed, you can read the original writing yourself. But the Fed said we're replacing that writing with another writing that essentially lets you be able to turn in this $5 bill for 5 $1 bills, and that's all you have a claim for. You don't have a claim for real money anymore. Our currency is not referential. Our currency is you might say self-referential. It doesn't refer to real money held somewhere by the issuer of the paper, but just lets you get more paper examples. So you can turn in a green rectangle with a 5 on it, and hey, guess what? You can get 5 green rectangles with a 1 on each of them. The new notes will read above the portrait, "The United States of America," the Fed tells the press back in 1963, and below the portrait, $1. The legend stating that the bill is legal tender for all debts, public and private, appearing on the silver certificates, will also appear on the new Federal Reserve notes. But the new notes will not contain any reference to silver. Okay, the Fed is telling you this. Thus, they will not carry the language, quote, "This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America," above the portrait, and $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. That's below the portrait. So the Fed is saying, hey, we're going to start circulating counterfeit currency. And the question of whether the Fed today will reduce interest rates or not is valuable in terms of ideosphere money, in terms of the world of money that is in the ideosphere. Okay, this is not real money anymore. We're talking about monopoly money. And the question is, shall this bank, which is a privately held corporation, it looks like it's federal, it looks like there's a reserve, but there's no reserve. It's all about debt creation. And the balance sheet since 2008 of this entity that issues our counterfeit currency is $4.5 trillion. And the word trillion was in yesterday's news as Bernie Sanders' total program for reform was counted by the Wall Street Journal in a page one story as costing $18 trillion. So Bernie Sanders is very modest in what he's proposing by way of saving the country from itself. The Fed, though, has this tremendous monopoly power. It is a cartel, and it is a monopoly. And it is a grant that the federal government gave for itself, taking several of the great critics of a central bank lost their lives in the sinking of the Titanic. But the thing that was the burr in the sides of these wealthy capitalists who wanted to have control of the government and the financial sector was Article 1, Section 10 in the federal Constitution. And it says, among other things, that no state shall ... I'm leaving out some material there about letters of marque and reprisal. But no state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, or make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payments of debt. So the states were all denied the authority to circulate their own paper currency, to coin money themselves, or to make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt. And the reason it's put that way is because money has to have value in the future. It can't have just an immediate value, but it has to be able to store value so that it can be paid in the future, where the lender of that money, either paper or coin, can return in repayment, can get back in repayment the full value that he gave, plus, of course, the profit, which would be the usury or the interest. And the Fed took what the Constitution denies to the states and gave it to itself, and that is, of course, the central bank. And that central bank is responsible since 1914, not just for inflations and wars, but it's responsible for, we could say, major parts of my listener's poverty. Right? You, my listener, are impoverished by the fact that we don't have lawful coin and currency. And it has brought, the fact that we have a central bank has brought about wars and great wealth to the few. Now, I don't want to dwell on who those people are. That's an interesting topic. But the question, I think, needs to come back to you. Knowing how this works, what are you going to do? What is your duty with your family and with yourself? How can you secure a better future for yourself than what is promised to you by a machine, a federal national government machine, which is really interested in harvesting you? ObamaCare is an insurance company cartel and racket, and it's involved also in the harvesting of the American people. It's giving everybody coverage, right? But no one's getting medical care. There's going to be an extension of insurance coverage, health insurance coverage for people, but there will be a long-term withdrawal of care within the official system. And that is because people who are in the system are intended to be harvested, as the caller suggested a moment ago. We people who have Social Security numbers are given as collateral by the machine, if you will, so that it can create new debts and guarantee payment based on perceived or promised revenues or perceived revenues of all those people who work in the capitalists in the economy, wage earners, and everybody else. Though we have to see that the tax system lets many people go untouched. Even the wealthy classes are largely untouched, given the huge burden of programs that the government is paid for on credit. Okay, there's not a right match between programs and taxation. Why? Well, taxes are very light. If in fact they're very high, but in one sense, but they're light in the other, because they're not paying for the federal program. And so there's a collapse ahead. We could call it a collapse, but we could also call it a great reckoning. And in that great reckoning, people who are not really aware of these dynamics, I think, will be badly damaged. And one of my arguments for you, my listener, is to have a plan B. And this is David Tulis. What's on your mind? Make it quick. I've got just a minute.
I just want to make a quick statement.
All right, you again.
It was said that a central bank is more dangerous to the liberties of the people than a standing army. And this goes back to Lincoln. When Abraham Lincoln decided to murder 500,000 Southerners, it was about destroying the Constitution. And we have high treason and tyranny. And it would be a good day to see the military arrest these people and try them for high treason. And they make the mafia look mild. The Federal Reserve banking system is blatantly unconstitutional. The reason for the Constitution was to prevent the emission of paper money, which has failed for 6,000 years. This is total tyranny of the illegal, unconstitutional occupiers in Washington, D.C. over the states, which started with Abraham Lincoln and the federal income tax to stop up the water in the soup to control price inflation. It is blatantly, totally unconstitutional, has nothing to do with the founders' vision, and they are total, absolute tyrants, all 535 of them. Thank you.
Well, if you want to call me, my number is 800-8949, 800-8949. The reason I'm a Chattanooga boy, and I'm born here, born in Memorial Hospital. And the reason I generally don't take calls is I just can't get my work done. If I keep getting interrupted, I can't deliver to you my prescient analysis. And I think that's why you want to give a couple minutes to my show, is that I hope that there are things that we offer by way of thinking, not just reacting to someone's comment, but thinking about things and then saying, here's the best we can say for today about the day's news, and what is good to know today. And we are trying to provide a public service. Now, the point I was making about a plan B. We just wanted to mention Bruce Krebs at Entrepreneur Source is a very good help for that. He can get you into a small business, a part-time business. You, my listener, need to have a gig that's something other than what you're doing now. You need to have a plan B. And Entrepreneur Source and Bruce Krebs, who has a great show here every other Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Every other Wednesday, there's Bruce Krebs. It's called Entrepreneur Hour, and he makes small business approachable. And he's the man to help you get through many of those hurdles, and he does it without charge, right? He does it without charging you, and that's because as a franchise headhunter, he's paid by the franchisor if you, his client, become a franchisee, finding the one you want. Again, the number is 875-5621. That's 875-5621. We're members of Trade Bank of Chattanooga, by the way, and it is the smarter way to barter. Call to find out more, 877-2202, or just look up Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Jürgen Mutz would love to answer your questions about it. We are in a system that is facing collapse, but again, collapse means that there's a recognition of reality that is not current, right? And though many will lose everything, many will lose half. My projection is you, my listener, are going to lose half your net worth, and that's because most people will lose 75, 80, 90%, but you're going to do less badly, possibly, because you are conservative and you have an interest in maybe divesting nationally and investing locally. And I think there's a kind of you are connecting with people here. You're investing in people here. You're making local people succeed. You're not following the idea-sphere money argument that, well, just let other people have your money in national economy and somehow they work magic. I think investing in national economy is a belief in magic. It's not diversification. I believe in diversification, which is to say some national, some local. That's the least it means. But possibly it means more, and possibly it means bringing more here to Hamilton County and to Chattanooga. This is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving me a couple minutes of your time. We're going to hear from a young writer who's got her finger on the pulse of millennials.
Expect more of the same weather-wise for your Thursday after this patchy morning fog. Lots of sunshine, a little warmer, highs lower 80s. Tonight, lows a little closer to 60. For Friday as well as the weekend, not much change. Warm afternoons with lots of sunshine, highs 82 to 85. Experience the demo teams of the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor, F/A-18 Hornet, U.S. Marine Corps Osprey, and the Geico Sky Typers at the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show in Rome, October 3rd and 4th. And I'm WDEF News Falls Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event. Going on now, a huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event. Going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to cartershootingsupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in Dr. Danielle Mitchell at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
An alternative to insurance for people of Christian interest is Samaritan Ministries, a cost-sharing group whose fellow members contribute to your medical expenses. Hi, David Tulis here, member of Samaritan Ministries. I have no deductibles, no silly in-network rules. I choose my own doctors. I'm a cash payer and get the cash discount with med providers. I'm 100% compensated by Christian families around the nation who send their checks directly with a personal note and pray for me in my medical distress. I have a family membership. I write a $405 check every month to a person in need. Just love it. Learn more about Samaritan Ministries Tuesday, September 29 at 7 p.m. at Brainerd Hills Presbyterian Church on East Brainerd Road. It's a mini conference on the Christian alternative to medical insurance.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on
You give us 12 minutes and 40
NASCAR
seconds,
Radio.
we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Settapani. 2 hours from now, federal prosecutors will announce a settlement in the criminal case against General Motors. It's not likely anyone will go to jail for selling cars with defective ignition switches. Longtime auto industry critic Clarence Ditlow believes that sends the wrong message.
People will continue to die on the highway from defects because automakers are not facing actual criminal penalties for the executives who make these terrible decisions.
CBS's Jeff Gilbert tells us GM's only penalty will be a $900 million fine.
General Motors has also paid millions to victims in a voluntary compensation fund. They still face a number of individual lawsuits related to the faulty ignition switches connected to 124 deaths.
General Motors says it will pay $575 million to settle civil lawsuits. There was plenty of sound and fury.
We don't need an apprentice in the White House. We have one right now.
Why should we trust you
Ms.
to
Well,
manage
wise,
the finances of this nation?
But the second Republican presidential debate is history now, leaving the pundits to write their postmortems. Some said Carly Fiorina got a boost from standing up to Donald Trump. Political analyst Larry Sabato agrees, but
I don't think anyone particularly stood out.
And one candidate may have suffered a setback.
If there was one big loser, it was probably Scott Walker. He needed a really impressive performance. He didn't get it.
A hearing that's about to begin at Fort Sam, Houston, could lead to court-martial charges for the soldier who spent 5 years as a Taliban hostage. CBS's Peter King is in San Antonio.
Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is accused of desertion and misbehavior. He disappeared after expressing opposition to the war in Afghanistan and his own misgivings about his role. Several former members of his unit have called for punishment. They've said that some service members died looking for him, but the Pentagon has said there's no evidence of that. One of the charges he faces does let the military say the search did put people in harm's way. Peter King, CBS News, San Antonio.
The earthquake that killed at least 8 people in Chile could send crashing waves onto beaches in Hawaii and parts of Southern California. The first waves should have reached parts of Hawaii by now. Cindy Preller is a geophysicist at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center.
The water could be wonky, crazy currents, fast, unpredictable, and it could last for many, many hours.
The government says housing starts fell in August, but permits to begin work on new projects in the months ahead were up. Building industry economist Robert Deeks.
It looked like the numbers were down kind of uniformly across the country, although there was strength in the South.
The number of new claims for unemployment benefits fell by 11,000 last week. At 2 o'clock Eastern Time, the Fed will announce its decision on whether or not to raise interest rates. The 3 young Californians who prevented a terrorist attack on a train in France last month will get to meet President Obama today. In early trading on Wall Street, the Dow Industrials are up about 5 points. This is CBS News.
Hi, I'm Parker Conrad, and I'm the CEO of Zenefits. We do something super boring, but really useful. Software for businesses to manage human resources. Zenefits takes all your HR systems, payroll, insurance, time tracking, and more, and we connect them all together so you and your employees can manage them all online in one place. Going forward, you don't have to deal with stuff like filling out new hire paperwork, health insurance forms, setting up payroll deductions, and so on. That's all gone. With Zenefits, you can focus on your company and your people, not your HR paperwork. We use Zenefits ourselves, and over the past year, we've used it to scale our team of about 15 people in San Francisco to over 700 employees across 4 different states. Today, more than 10,000 small businesses use our service, and we'd love to show you what Zenefits can do for yours.
See what Zenefits is all about. Oh, and best of all, it's free. Yes, free. Zenefits.com. Zenefits.com. Zenefits.com.
Today's assignment, save the professor's life. CBS's Jim Krasula tells us this was no academic exercise and the students earned an A+.
Duke University marketing professor George Noory is alive thanks to 4 pre-med students. The 4, including Rakita Patil, who volunteer with Duke's EMS department, were alerted to Grody, who was found in his office slumped in a chair without a pulse.
You can't really allow the nerves to get in the way of what you're doing. The nerves are more the adrenaline kicking in. You just have like an extra kick of energy.
Patil had to use a defibrillator for the first time to revive Grody, Grody. He's in the hospital and is expected to be okay after suffering a massive heart attack. Jim Krasula, CBS News.
The Irving, Texas teenager who was placed in handcuffs after a teacher mistook his homemade clock for a bomb has accepted an invitation to visit the White House. Supporters used social media to rally to Ahmed Mohammed's defense. President Obama posted a tweet calling the clock cool. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
The debate last night among contenders for the Republican nomination for president certainly was lively, and if you watch it, I hope you find some consolation in one figurehead or the other. My own analysis, however, is that it doesn't matter whom the Republicans elect or if the Republicans win the election or the Democrats. Either way, we have parties at the top who can only marginally steer developments in favor of constitutional government and solvency. Otherwise, the system is grinding towards a kind of doomsday scenario, and it's almost self-automated. And there are so many interests that are part of the machine grinding away to private benefit, to private gain, that no one can stop it. And so there's a very bleak prospect. However, I am a great optimist. As we talk about meltdowns and collapses, these are favorable things, and they're favorable, though millions will be hurt by them, because they bring back a recognition of real things such as price. If you have an economy in which everything is borrowed into existence and everything has a mortgage on it, even sandwiches for lunch are mortgaged, well, you don't know what really anything is worth. And so a collapse of the national economic system based on credit will have many advantages. However, we are in agony now. The millennial generation, the younger generation, is in bad straits, bad situation. And to give us an update on how bad the picture is and what might some of the remedies be, we have on the phone, or I have on the phone, Katie Kieffer, who is a columnist. She writes for townhall.com and has recently published a book. The main title is "Let Me Be Clear," and it's about the millennial generation doing worse than that of its parents. Well, Katie, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, tell us what one of the solutions is, perhaps, for younger people to, let's say, insurance. About the insurance. How are young people covering their medical expenses? They're generally a healthy group of folk. They have really need for medical care only in disasters or emergencies. What is their situation vis-a-vis the medical system, and are they somehow trapped?
Mm-hmm. Well, most young people are so young and healthy that they haven't had to devote too much attention to health care. But what I do in my book, which I titled "Let Me Be Clear," to turn Barack Obama's famous catchphrase against him, is I spend an entire chapter talking about health care. And I interviewed close to 300 doctors and surgeons, and I specifically asked them, how can we solve this health care crisis where we do improve our system without overhauling it, and we improve it in a way that provides affordable, high-quality health care for everyone. And 90% of them told me that the current ACA bill will discourage talented young people from attending medical school and exacerbate the existing shortage of doctors that we have out there. Close to 90% also said that the existing health care bill or law, as we have it now, will actually raise costs and lower the quality of care, and that young people will be shouldering this burden. So they offered me some solutions, which I outline in the book, and it takes about a whole chapter to do that. But one way that young people can deal with the situation now, and it's what I'm doing, is to opt out of Obamacare, so to not support it in any way with your money by joining a healthcare sharing ministry. And I'm a member of Samaritan Ministries, and this is a way for me to legally opt out of Obamacare so that I still have an emergency method to care for my healthcare needs, but I'm also not feeding the system in any way. And so I feel very positive about that. And young people, I'm encouraging young people to also look into that for themselves as an option.
Well, in a nutshell, what are the benefits of being part of a Christian profit sharing group that's not insurance? What are the highlights of that option?
Mm-hmm. Well, I found that I pay a monthly share of approximately $185 a month, and that actually turns out to be a little less than I would pay on a monthly premium basis. So that's one advantage. I also do appreciate the transparency and knowing exactly where my money is going. And of course, it does take a little bit of effort on my part. Each month you do, as a part of at least Samaritan Ministries, you need to write a note to an individual who is sick or has had some medical needs and say that you're praying for them and a little note of encouragement. So it takes a little bit of an effort
that goes with your check.
Part, but I do think that this effort is worth it in the sense that it creates helps you have a sense of gratitude for what you do have in life. And one thing that Samaritan Ministries in particular does is they keep their members abreast of public policy issues. So that's a third benefit, I would say, as we're fighting this battle to try to implement a better system. Samaritan Ministries does a good job of keeping their members abreast with the public policy issues that they might not have time in their day-to-day life as a mother or someone who has a 9-to-5 job to keep up on.
In one of your texts, Katie Kieffer, you say that that one of the problems of Obamacare is that women and children are last. How is that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes against everything that we hear on the news, of course, especially with regard to women. We're continually inundated with the message that women need the ACA in order to cover all of their reproductive health care needs. However, what I found in doing my research and as a woman, I found that this is actually the opposite, because you see, as a woman, whether or not you support, for example, birth control as an option for yourself, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that with this new law that we have, it violates the First Amendment. It violates free speech. And so that's essential to every woman. Every woman wants that. And this healthcare law that we do have in place right now granted an exemption. Well, they call it an exemption. And it says that you can go without insurance, but the catch is that you have to pay a really high fine or go to prison. So in my mind, that's not really a choice where a woman can opt out of a certain form of health care based on she just doesn't feel like it, either financially or for a religious reason. She doesn't approve of it, but her choice is to pay a huge amount of money that does not, by the way, go towards her health care. It just goes towards the government, and she doesn't have any clue where that money goes, or she gets to go to prison. So I don't think that's a choice. That's certainly not in line with the First Amendment. So we do need to get rid of this law because it doesn't respect a woman's right to free choice.
What about the idea, Katie? We're talking with Katie Kieffer, who's a columnist for townhall.com and has written a book, Let Me Be Clear. It's on the millennial generation and how it's doing less well than its predecessors. Katie, what about the idea of privacy, peeping toms, and data? People who sign up at the federal website or that of one of the states faces perils online. What are they?
Right. Well, if you're a peeping Tom, if you go and look in someone's window, your next door neighbor, for example, there will be repercussions. That's against the law. However, if the federal government the best care over its technical system so that your information might be hacked, as we've seen happen numerous times recently with our federal government's databases. There's no repercussions for the federal government. So that's another reason, just practically speaking, why no one should sign up for ObamaCare at this point, because any information that you input into the healthcare website is vulnerable. And even as of July 25th, Congressman Lamar Smith of Texas said that the $2 billion website still has glitches. And one thing that I do in this column is I outline all of the different problems that we still have seen yet in 2015, years after this law has been rolled out. So people should be very wary of putting any of their personal information into this website, and we have yet to see assurances from Washington, D.C. that it's a safe website.
So that would be social security numbers, dates of birth, address, things like that are pretty simple, but which all let a hacker triangulate information about you to do damage to my listener or my listener's wife or his daughter.
Right, exactly. You just shouldn't put that information into a website that you know to be unsafe. And that's not even a political reason. It's just a practical reason why we shouldn't sign up for ObamaCare at this point.
One of the interesting points you made, Katie Kieffer, in one of your columns was that the Affordable Care Act could triple my listeners' chance of depression. Talk a little bit about that. I had not quite thought of it that way, but how is it that depression and feeling down in one's spirits is a state of mind or state of heart that comes from a connection with or a use of or involvement in Obamacare? How do you see that as working?
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned that I wrote about how the millennial generation is the first generation to do worse than their parents. And one thing that I do in this book, titled Let Me Be Clear, is I not only outline that, but I also offer solutions. That's very important to not just depress people, but to empower them. And I use my business experience and research to do that. And to get to your question, young people in particular, because of their high unemployment rate, it's about 15% right now, and also about anywhere between 25%, so a fourth, and a third of millennials have been living at home with their parents during the Obama reign. And so we've seen that's a 40-year high. We haven't seen those numbers in our country for the past 40 years of so many young people living at home. And so as a millennial in particular, I know my generation is depressed because we don't have financial opportunities. And this healthcare law actually exacerbates that situation, where it makes it even more difficult for us to become entrepreneurs or to get jobs, because it's in effect not only a tax on us personally because it raises our healthcare costs, but it also is a tax on employers who we've seen to be either taking full-time jobs and cutting them down to part-time, or they're in some ways having to cut some sort of benefit out of the jobs that they're able to offer to young people, and all ages, of course, but it particularly hurts young people because they don't have that nest egg build up. And so that's what I mean about it causing depression. And I do cite some studies, actually from our own government, the CDC, showing that unemployed Americans between the ages of 18 and 25 are 3.17 times, or in a sense, 3 times more likely than their employed peers to become depressed. And then I also cite statistics showing that tens of thousands of jobs have been lost due to the ObamaCare law. So you can just correlate those.
Well, let me just ask one.
We're losing tens of thousands of jobs. And
let me ask one quick question about people living at home. We could say you're suggesting that living at home for a 22-year-old, 23-year-old may be depressing. On the other hand, there is some value in that. You can economize if a young person has older parents or even a grandparent who lives at home, then he can help with that person. It makes a home more intergenerational. And we may not have our own apartments, which are $500 or $600 or $700 a month plus utilities, but indeed the young person who is either with a job or without a job is saving that money. So it seems that there's an opportunity, at least for a younger person who is staying at home, to have to work on his family relations, and he is, after all, the heir of some kind, or she, if it's a woman, the young woman is an heiress of the family's estate and value. So it's not necessarily bad that a young person stays at home. Is it, Katie Kieffer?
Yes, I would say that it is. Of course, whatever situation that you find yourself in life, you should make the best of it. So if you can't afford to move out of your parents' house, and we're talking here, and not just people who are in their low 20s who are normally in college and might be at home anyway, but we're talking young people all the way up to age 35 who are living at home with their parents.
That's not a young
person. Necessity, because that's the age range for the millennials, all the way up to the mid 30s. So it's not good for those people to, not by their own choice, to be staying at home. These young people aren't staying there to save money or to bond with their parents. They are staying there
out of necessity,
without the choice. They have to. They have no other option. So that actually, I would say, hurts their relationship with their parents and with themselves, because the parents feel like they are, in a sense, burdened, and the young people don't feel like they have that freedom that they should have.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Katie Kieffer, who's a writer at townhall.com. She's the author of a book called Let Me Be Clear on the Millennial Generation, comparing it with the predecessor. Well, Katie, let me ask you a question. What are solutions that are local economy solutions? It's easy to talk about politics. It's easy to talk about just get a Republican elected, but that's not a solution. My listener does not believe that those are solutions. What are solutions that people can do practically in their towns, where it is that they're living, in their homes, in their hometowns, that are not political? What are real solutions?
Well, yes, individuals are responsible for the direction of our country, and it will be up to each of us individually to take our country in a direction that's positive. And so what I do in the last chapter of my book, which is called Roaring Muscle Cars, is I do explain solutions that are local-based, faith-related, as well as and how to, if you're a young person, how you can go out there and become an entrepreneur. 70% of millennials say that they aspire to become entrepreneurs. So whether you're a parent or a grandparent or an educator, anything that you can do to empower young people to become entrepreneurs is going to make our country better, because you see, we have to tap into that natural desire that they have to be independent and to be the next Steve Jobs. So I really do go into that, and it's something that takes longer than 30 seconds to explain, which is why I wrote a book
what are
about
some
it.
other points
But you can
in the way
find
of
that
highlights?
on Amazon. I've had, or Barnes & Noble, and I've had young people come up to me and say, I have to get a copy of this to give as a friend to another millennial. I've also had parents who bought it as the Christmas gift for their parents. And I even had a millennial who used to work for Barack Obama who said that he read it, and now he has hope and inspiration for the future, because a lot of millennials, the majority, voted for Barack Obama twice.
What's another? Well, Katie Kieffer, what's another point that my listener might? What's another point that my listener might consider in the way of suggestions? What are real local solutions? All right, so you mentioned entrepreneurship. What are some other things that are helpful where my listener can take charge of things himself and not just keep waiting for government to do something?
Well, like I said, I do have solutions in my book, and they are not solutions necessarily that you can run through in 30 seconds. So I would encourage people to pick that up. A lot of it is about educating the next generation. And so we each have to do that. Most millennials don't know the history of our country. Most millennials don't know that, for example, Bill Clinton and John F. Kennedy, who are also Democrats, ran this country in a completely different way than Barack Obama. And so unless this generation understands their history, their own history, which they are being taught in a completely warped manner in their schools, especially if we implement Common Core, there really is no way to move forward. So I firmly believe in education. And none of these things happen overnight. I'm asked this question quite frequently, and people want a quick and easy answer, but the truth is there isn't. It's a long time process. It took us a long time to get to where is why.
Well, Katie, thanks so much. I'm gonna have to say thank you for your call. Thanks, Katie Kieffer, for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Katie Kieffer is a writer, a columnist at townhall.com, and her book is called Let Me Be Clear, and she's telling us about solutions that are some local economy solutions, including entrepreneurship and education, knowing what's happening by doing a bit of reading. This is David Tulis. Thanks for your time.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect more of the same weather-wise for your Thursday after this patchy morning fog. Lots of sunshine, a little warmer, highs lower 80s. Tonight, lows a little closer to 60. For Friday as well as the weekend, not much change. Warm afternoons with lots of sunshine, highs 82 to 85. Experience the demo teams of the U.S. Air Force F-22 RAP and the Geico Sky Typers at the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show in Rome, October 3rd and 4th. And I'm WDEF News Swallows Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones Financial Advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? At Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, indoor air professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu, and last night's GOP showdown foreign policy, one of the key topics. Carly Fiorino in the CNN debate talking tough on Iran, saying as president, she'd tell its supreme leader.
Unless and until he opens every military and every nuclear facility to real anytime, anywhere inspections by our people, not his, we, the United States of America, will make it as difficult as possible to move money around the global financial system. We can do that. We don't need anyone's cooperation to do it.
Donald Trump says the U.S. should be also paying attention to another threat.
We're talking about Iran. They're bad actors. Bad things are going to happen. But in the meantime, you have somebody right now in North Korea who's got nuclear weapons and who is saying almost every other week, I'm ready to use them. And we don't even mention it.
And GM agreeing to pay $900 million to end a criminal investigation into its handling of defective ignition switches linked to 124 deaths. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
There's an important document out of the Supreme Court of Alabama, a petition by a probate judge, a probate court judge, which is equivalent here to Hamilton County Clerk Bill Knowles' office, and it touches on the question of the issuance of marriage licenses that grant people permission to marry. And in Alabama, you, my listener, know something, I hope, by now, and that is that you have a right to marry. And therefore, if you have a right to marry, why would you go and ask permission to do so? Why would you ask, and why would you have your son talk about going to get a marriage license to marry the sweetheart he has had since his senior year in high school? Why would those two need to ask permission if they have yours and he, the son, has obtained the permission from her dad? Why would there need to be permission beyond that? Well, it's because we've been trained by the operation of the modern state to thinking that we don't have rights, that we in fact have only permissions all around, and that we just have to obtain that permission. Then we can do the thing that we have our heart set on. But it's really quite different. Legally, you are under no obligation to marry under statute. You have a right of marriage under common law. And common law marriage has been given a bad rap because we live in a system of statutory law and what's called positive law. People think that somehow the exercise of a common law right is a crime or a sin. People shacking up together and having sexual intercourse and okay, it's just not marriage. And people who marry a common law hopefully know what's at issue and can make legally defensible, legally secure their marriage at common law, which is a two-party marriage. Other marriages with a statute involved are three-party marriages. And I would say legally you're better off to have a two-party marriage rather than have the enabling agent, the empowering agent of a three-party marriage, which is the state, right? If you go to the state for marriage license, you are saying, I can't marry my sweetheart unless you let me, okay? And she says the same thing. She goes to the state and says, I can't marry that dear man because I just can't. So please let me. So what happens is the state becomes the key party, the enabling party, the party of power that unites man and woman, and you have legal disabilities that come with that. And part of those legal disabilities, I would think, come through raids on families, raids that steal children from families. It is a crisis that I've neglected to cover much, probably because I don't have a lot of local detail on that. But that is the raid, the stealing of children from parents. You know, a parent fails to pay a water bill and his children are taken from him. That's what I'm talking about. It's happening all over the place. And there's an attorney in Nashville, Connie Regularly, who posts regularly on this grievous question. Well, the disability that you face comes in that. However, a man who's married that man has a legal claim and a status that protects those children. I believe it has not been properly exercised. I've not heard any report of such a person saying, I want my children back from DCS, Department of Children's Services. You give them back to me. They don't belong to you. You have no jurisdiction. You have no substance matter jurisdiction, no personal jurisdiction over those children. And you are committing a tort against me if you don't remit them within a couple hours before 5 o'clock today. That's the kind of position that a free man would have in his marriage. Now, this petition in the High Court of Alabama is important because it is a defense of the probate judge, and it is a defense. It's begging for, demanding, if you will, in the course of about 10 pages, it's demanding a ruling that protects probate judges in Alabama who are men of the Constitution, men of the law, men faithful to their oaths of office, and women who don't want to marry lug butts, right? Lug butts are LGBTQs. The Q is, of course, the word for queer. A county clerk who doesn't want to marry two queers, two LGBTQ type people has a duty to not do so, whatever his personal beliefs are, right? It doesn't matter whether the clerk believes in gay marriage or not. His duty is not under opinion. His duty is not controlled by his personal feelings, his emotions. Should be governed by the law, right? We are a nation of laws, and my position on this is that he should do what Judge Nick Williams is asking be done, and that is that the law be upheld by that court. And so he's asking for an order declaring the efficacy of the high court's orders upholding and enforcing the Alabama Constitution and the Alabama marriage laws, quote, notwithstanding the decision of Obergefell versus Hodges, which came out in June. He has the claim that Obergefell, the Poofter decision, has no force or effect on this court's existing orders for the reasons set forth in the pleadings to date. With full deference, he says, this pleading says to the ongoing deliberation and labors of the Alabama High Court, given the nature of the relief requested herein, Judge Williams is compelled by events, those in Kentucky, occurring during the pendency of this court's decision to file this motion for an expedited declaration. He wants results now on account of the Kim Davis crisis, in which a clerk of county in Rowan County, Kentucky, is jailed, right? Jailed for obeying the law. A truly remarkable situation, suggesting the need to overthrow by hook or crook, by righteous action, I would suggest, the imperial federal supremacy interpretation, which is that the federal court is supreme, not the Constitution. In fact, that's just backwards. In fact, the Constitution is supreme, and every oath taker, every office holder has an equal claim to the Constitution and its operation, and it's not the exclusive property of the high court justices. This petition says that Justice right to sodomy-based marriage, that it would inevitably result in conflict with religious liberty. He quotes Chief Justice Roberts. The majority graciously suggests that religious believers may continue to, quote, advocate and to, quote, teach their views of marriage. The First Amendment guarantees, however, the freedom to exercise religion. Ominously, that is not a word the majority uses, and this petition criticizes Obergefell as being an erroneous retroactive law. Of course, it's not a law. Opinions by the high court are not law at all. They're just opinions, right? This is the weakest branch of the weakest federal department, and it has no lawmaking capacity. And he says that to apply Obergefell to Alabama, holding acts unconstitutionally, is an ex post facto law, retroactively criminalizing religious conviction and imposing court-legislated criminal conduct on those whose oath, when taken, had no such burden. So, in other words, how can an opinion go back in time, make an effective crime, out of Kim Davis's oath of office, which she did with full reverence and fear of God, making that a crime, right? So it's an ex post facto law to say that now that we have a poofter theory controlling, we can go back and effectively criminalize oaths of office and people who made those oaths really believing them, believing in fear of the God whose name is evoked to guarantee the performance of the oath, the performance of that clerk, or here in our county, Bill Knowles, the county clerk, to uphold the Constitution. Of course, Bill Knowles did not uphold the Constitution and did not act courageously, did not act as his Christian convictions should have dictated to him. This filing goes on to say that while Clerk Davis has had the courage of conviction to go to jail rather than to deny her faith under a de facto religious test, one that did not exist when she took her oath of office, she should not have been placed in that position. And this pleading says that the federal court has been acting as a form of judicial tyranny. Clerk Davis would not have been placed in that position had a bare majority of 5 justices on the high court not chosen to substitute their own will as superior to the written United States Constitution, the will of the people as expressed in more than 36 state constitutions, right? And the common wisdom of our forebears in more than 220 years of American history and millennia of our Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Western heritage. And he says that marriage is not just an opinion. It can't be really affirmed by a court or not. It is a fact. It is something that's not just opinion. It is the truth, he says. Natural marriage, consistent with the created order and the law of nature, nature's God, he says, is only between a man and a woman, and is in no way equivalent to sodomy-based marriage. And this is a legal filing in Alabama. I'd say refreshing language. Right? Though I wonder why Sodom is the biblical reference so commonly used. Maybe because it has fewer letters than the word Gomorrah, and it sounds Gomorrah-based marriage might not have quite the ring of sodomy, because you're not called a Gomorrahite, you're called a sodomite if you are tempted by the art of buggery, male buggery. The opinion of 5 lawyers in Obergefell, in contrast, is utter fantasy with no foundation in the Constitution or in ultimate reality. So you see, even in law issues, there is a question of God. What does God do? What does God say? What is reality? And if we don't have an external source of God, an external source of authority, well, in other words, if you don't have theonomy, in other words, a law from God, you have simply autonomy, and then you have a scene of chaos where various autonomies, various autonomous players fight out what is true, what is right. And sometimes the good guys win, and sometimes if you look at tyrannies of the past, the bad guys win. The bad guys have control over what's true and right and good. And people are just following orders, as they say. Well, I think the gay issue is certainly vibrant and active, and we have yet to get a tally from Bill Knowles how many poofters have gotten married, how many gay same-sex unions have been created by his office. We just need to have a little time. If you, my listener, want to find out for me, I would really appreciate your making a call down there and letting me know how many gay unions have been given the edifying title of marriage by the county clerk, Bill Knowles, here in Hamilton County. There's danger in the whole gay theory. Obergefell, of course, is creating a kind of jihad against Christianity, a jihad against the past, which will probably, in historical terms, be short-lived, but it will have a great deal of damage to make, including possibly in federal statute. There's an essay that I've wanted to mention for a couple of days now from LifeSite News about the Equality Act and its effort to weaponize, as the headline says, weaponize gay marriage and stamp out dissent for those who are not approving of and do not agree with the sexual orientation and gender identity of the privileged classes. You're going to have to pay. You're going to have to be made to suffer under these holy theories that the good people, just like Muslims with their Quran and their Hadith and their Sirah, in their trilogy, you have these hugely compulsive and violent assertions of virtue. And what is being defended, of course, and what is being imposed is, you might say, the Gomorrhan version of marriage. But just in the details, just for a minute here, I don't want to take too much time to tell you about this, but the Equality Act would amend Title VI on employment. It would create a new protected class for sexual orientation here in Chattanooga and gender identity in Hamilton County, with no countervailing exemptions for faith-based organizations that maintain internal standards of sexual conduct rooted in longstanding religious tenets. So what about in public accommodation? That's one where there's a great deal of conflict. Well, the bill would drastically expand Title II, the definition of public accommodation, to cover gatherings in Hamilton County and facilities historically owned and operated by churches or religious organizations, shelters, for example, Union Gospel Mission, for example, food banks and care centers, extending far beyond the categories at issue during the Civil Rights Movement, which there were limited to common carrier, taxi, train, and airlines, public utilities, hotels, restaurants, and entertainment venues. So in other words, the idea of public accommodation would include many new areas that are subject to tender religious, even Christian claim upon them. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act would also be gutted by this bill, and the details which reach out and touch someone else in some other part of the law. It would omit exemptions for religious organizations contained in prior drafts of the ENDA Act, which is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. And it expressly states that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the RFRA, as it's called, may not be used as a defense or a basis for challenging the Equality Act. So in other words, your right of religious worship is cast aside. And effectively, the amendment, the Constitution amended without the amendment process. And so it would be a statutory gutting of a constitutional right. But we've had many examples of that already. And it's not necessarily a new thing. I wanted to mention to you Chattanooga Sports Institute, run by Dr. Danielle Mitchell. Danielle Mitchell is a very vibrant and active host here on our station. Every other Wednesday at 11, we have her as a guest host as she's talking about medicine. She runs a family practice, an orthopedics care, and urgent care practice on Access Road, North Access Road, just down the way from the Access, locally owned Access Pharmacy in Hickson. It's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com, and call her at 875-1005 for details about what she does. She's going into the cash model of medicine. It's a terrific practice, and she is an innovator, a medical innovator, not just in the care of her patients, but in the way she deals with her patients financially. And she's running her service by subscription, cash only. A remarkable turn of events. Again, local economy coming up with solutions for national problems. She is a free market actor. Okay, and we need to understand that. She and David Redd and Homero Rivas and Charles Adams and 2 or 3 other doctors in the Chattanooga area are pioneering this revolt against the machine, the revolt against the great I there at the top of the pyramid. The one that you see on the back of your $1 Federal Reserve note, that I is the insurance industry and government combined in a sort of cartel where it is a human harvesting mechanism that you might be wise to understand more fully. I encourage you to read about it. And so that is how federal statutes can be weaponized against people like you. You're not even a Christian. You're my listener, and yet you are going to be under the gun when it comes to public accommodations. And it is an opinion that comes without federal subject matter jurisdiction. That's why you can ignore it. I mean, you should ignore it. I'm not giving that as legal advice. What I'm saying is that opinion is not law, and we've all been deluded by lawyers. Lawyers, as a guild, as a class, have deluded the American people, and it's something that can't easily be undone. And so, in other words, if people believe Obergefell is law, well, then it is. Okay, that's how that works. There's a kind of objective made a subjective made objective, and it's done by faith. But think just for a minute: if Obergefell is law, then paper money, then your Federal Reserve note, your credit, that's money too, right? And we've been here in local economy seduced by practice. We've been seduced by routinely hearing the same thing over and over again, that the Federal Reserve System, with its giant bubble, is really going to save us from problem, and it's keeping the economy afloat by low interest rates. Of course, low interest rates does what? Yes, that's right. It steals from you, the depositor, steals from you, the saver, and discourages that. And what it does, it discourages not saving, but borrowing for some need, right? Some vacation you need to take. America is overbuilt with shopping centers. It is overbuilt with cars. I've been thinking about the Great Deformation. The book, it's an economic history by David Stockman, runs past 700 pages, and I just finished it a few days ago. And there is no remedy. There is nothing that can be done. There has to be a major reckoning, which will be violent. And what we don't need is intervention, right? Intervention breeds intervention. And we've had that. We've had intervention since the 1960s. And reality has not been allowed to connect with you, nor you with it. And so you think that Obergefell is law. You think that having your savings in dollars is good, and so well, maybe for now, very provisionally, that is true. And my doubts are grave. I've been thinking along the lines of this program for most of my adult life. I've been in the newspaper business for almost 25 years here in Chattanooga, and when I left the paper, the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, as a copy editor, I said, I need to talk about local economy. I need to talk about the things that are really important and that are really in the way of solutions. Local economy is a concept, is the solution to dissolving inflationary, debt-riddled, tyrannical, despotic, deceitful, and fraudulent national economy, overseen by the good people, including Grandma Yellen. She's as much behind this artificial suppression of the interest rate as anybody else. And don't forget, interest rates tell you what things are worth in the future. And when the interest rate is near zero, what you're being told is that the future is cheap. Borrow now. Go into debt now. Help the economy. Help yourself. Look, you don't have to worry about it. It's just a loan, right? It's just a loan. You can have your vacation now. You can have a reverse equity loan, right? You can mine your house for expenses now. Well, I think what we've forgotten is something that Robert Kiyosaki, in his very noted book in the 90s called Rich Dad Poor Dad, points out, and that is that there's a difference between an asset and a liability. Most people think that buying a new boat is an asset, right? Somehow there's value in that boat, and they can always sell it downstream for something, get their money back, and they can have a lot of pleasure now. But so many things are really just liabilities. They're not assets. They don't create wealth. Now, savings, of course, I think don't create wealth. If you have a gold or a silver savings pile or cash pile, that's not working in the economy. And so it's a form of savings. It's very conservative. You're waiting with liquidity for something to happen so you can pounce on it, right? When things are at their worst, then is when that money appears and it pays cash, and you are buying things under distress. Things that were purchased on debt now are sold at huge discount, and so you can swoop in. So the man with cash is king in a depression, in a recession, and we are just having a taste of what's ahead in 2008 and 9. And we're having a little bit of it now, but things are going to get much worse. But what that means is that they're going to be better on the other side if we just can somehow have the good people stay out of the picture, if we can have them somehow not intervene yet again. And when they intervene, it's always to the benefit of their friends, right? It's peer-oriented to be kind of thing that these stewards of the national economy have. And you are viewed with no interest at all. You are just an asset, and you are to do what you're supposed to do. And if you do what you're supposed to do, just follow your routine, just have your debts, have your credit card, have your consumption, have your constant eating out, your refusal to save, your refusal to invest, your confidence in Wall Street, your confidence in your Vanguard fund and your Fidelity funds and your bond funds and all that. Just play that game and you'll be fine, according to them. They want you to not think that there's any danger at all. Their great power when there's a crisis is conversation, right? Putting a face on the promise of security, the promise of the Fed. We will do anything necessary to keep our economy sound and stable, is the kind of statement you'll hear. And they want you to believe it. They want you to think that they have charge of things, and yet they are terrified. Those people up there are terrified. They can't control what's going to happen. They can't really stop it. They have a crisis intervention team that President Reagan started after the LCBT, the long-term capital management collapse. That he created that, but that's not going to stop what's going to happen. So my caution to you is get liquid, invest local, take some time with your wife and your children today. Maybe. This is David Tulis.
Expect more of the same weather-wise for your Thursday after this patchy morning fog. Lots of sunshine, a little warmer, highs lower 80s. Tonight, lows a little closer to 60. For Friday as well as the weekend, not much change. Warm afternoons with lots of sunshine, highs 82 to 85. Experience the demo teams of the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor, F-A-18 Hornet, U.S. Marine Corps Osprey, and the Geico Sky Typers at the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show in Rome, October 3rd and 4th. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event going on now. A huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to cartershootingsupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com.